Hello, Hen. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you for taking the time to speak about this.
Delighted to do it.
So, your audit shows that 2025 was the most violent year for American Jews on record, murders on US soil for the first time since 2019. And you've been sounding the alarm on anti-Semitism for years. Do you feel like people are finally listening? Is something changing?
So these are good questions. I mean, indeed, 2025 was the overall numbers in the United States decreased over 2024, which is good, and we welcome that. And yet, at the same time, violence, as you're sort of saying, was even a little bit higher than the prior year. 3 people dead, 20 around the world. Look, anti-Semitism is indisputable at this point. Like the argument whether anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism has been asked and answered, there's a trail of bodies that proves the case. But what I worry about, Hen, is not just its normalization in our public life today, but its institutionalization. So I think we're at a very difficult point. The data shows us that there's almost two eras, pre-October 7 and post-October 7. And we need to move out of this post-October 7th era and get the whole world focused on how are we going to stop this crisis without any delay? Because yes, there's a trail of dead Jews in our wake, but there will be far worse ahead of us if we don't stop this now.
Right. And I did see in the report some separation that 45% of the incidents were Israel or Zionism related. You did make this distinction at the ADL. How do you make this distinction?
Look, that's a great question. So there is this fiction, Hen, that you know very well, that people say, oh, whenever I criticize Israel, they tell me I'm an anti-Semite. That is not true. If that were true, you and I would be anti-Semites. I mean, it's a preposterous lie that's pushed by people with an agenda. So indeed, when we look at the data and we analyze things that are reported to us, just because you criticize Israel doesn't mean you're anti-Semitic. And so last year, as you said, 45% of the anti-Israel demonstrations or rallies, events that we saw had anti-Semitism there, which means a majority did not. Now, how are we able to make that distinction? Because look, we think there's lots of legitimate ways to criticize policies of the Jewish state. There's lots of legitimate ways to criticize practices of their leaders. There's lots of legitimate ways to take issue strongly, robustly, like intensely, passionately with things you think the Jewish state gets wrong. But we have a problem when that criticism descends into demonizing all Israelis, like no Zionists allowed here.
Right. Yeah. It's always non-Jews that are making the claim that you can't criticize Israel without being anti-Semitic. It's usually anti-Semites that are saying it. I don't think I met any Jew that doesn't criticize some Israeli policies. I don't know if you have.
Yeah, I'd love to meet that mythical person. Really, I'd love to. It's like a unicorn,
Right.
really. And they live on the lost city of Atlantis. And subjecting you, Hen, right, as a person of color, as an Israeli from the Middle East, to some artificial standard concocted by people in the West is both, I think, dumb, and I think it does a disservice to the real cause that we have. Which how do we make sure that Palestinians have dignity and equality in some kind of state of their own, even while Israelis should enjoy safety and security in a state of their own? You know, the anti-Zionism argument is an argument for war and for continued conflict. I don't see who that helps.
So, we're living in a time of severe political polarization in America. How do you navigate advocating for the best interests of the Jewish community, which is what your main task is, while not alienating parts of the public?
This is so hard and it's very difficult, and there's sort of no easy answer because I can tell you every day I alienate parts of the public because things are so polarized in America. Everyone has decided they either play for a red team or they
Hmm.
play for a blue team. I don't play for any team. Or if you will, I play for the Jewish team. And so that means I'm going to call it out, whether it happens on the right or the left. And it's really quite remarkable how many politicians are choosing political expediency over, core principles these days. I see it on both sides, and I think that's deeply damaging. It may tactically help you in the short term, like win a primary, but it will harm you in the long run by undermining your own kind of credibility.
And I want to touch on the organizational part of the report and what you pointed out earlier. One example that I think is really crucial, that Wikipedia downgraded the ADL as a source on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict recently. Whether you agree or disagree, I disagree, but does it concern you that an organization's credibility is being questioned this way? And what are you doing to fight it?
It's a really good question. So I think there are a few things to kind of unpack about that. Number one, let's just acknowledge that no organization is perfect, not ADL, not any other. So pursuant to that, like we've made mistakes and the things we've gotten wrong, and we tried in a very honest, I think, forthright way to acknowledge when we make a mistake and to do better. But number two, I think we also came to this battle, this fight, and ADL for many years has been paying attention to social media, been paying attention to video games. Now we've spent a lot of time focusing on LLMs and the AI companies, but admittedly, we had not given sufficient focus to Wikipedia. And so when this happened, when we were discredited, which is, bizarre that we weren't credible on anti-Semitism related to the Middle East, we started looking into it. And certainly our investigation quickly revealed that there were a handful of editors who were manipulating these articles, who had been using it as kind of a Trojan horse, Wikipedia, with its kind of openness to get inside and to manipulate not just articles on ADL, but on other issues related to Israel and the Middle East and Jewish topics, to move them away from what the standard opinion is. So we're fighting that. We have fought that by exposing those editors. A number of them have now been banned, either topic banned on Israel or anti-Semitism, or all out banned from contributing to Wikipedia. Number two, we've pushed the Wikipedia leadership for policy changes, and we are working on that. And number three, we're now engaged with elected officials. I mean, Wikipedia is one of the most visited websites in the world. It's one of the primary sources of information, not just for people, but feeding these LLMs. And so getting it right in Wikipedia is important because it means the plumbing of our artificial general intelligence needs to function effectively in a fact-based manner. So I hope there'll be a little bit more sunlight and a little bit more light in general shined on Wikipedia. And I think, regulators can help with that because it's just so important to our information economy. It needs to work effectively.
Last question. You're putting out a data that says that American Jews were targeted on average 17 times a day in 2025. What do you say to a Jewish family in America that reads that number and asks you, is it still safe to be visibly Jewish in America today?
Well, that's not hypothetical. I got asked that last night when I met a supporter who also has grandchildren, who told me that he's afraid for his grandchildren and for my kids. I have 3 kids who are about the age of his grandchildren. So a lot of Jewish people are asking this question. And frankly, Hen, as you know, again, you are so on this stuff, and I so appreciate your voice and your moral leadership. Jewish people are asking the same question today in London, England, in Paris, France, in Sydney, Australia, in Toronto, Canada. And so what I would say to that is absolutely yes. I mean, we may live in diaspora, we may live in this galut, if you will, but the reality is that Jewish life has flourished in the diaspora for thousands of years. And Western democracies, democracy in general, this American democracy, I would argue in our diaspora, in our 2,000 plus year history of diaspora, this has been the best, safest place for the Jewish people, bar none. But here's the thing. If we want it to stay that way, Hen, we have to fight for it. We shouldn't expect that this will just last forever. We can't afford to take this for granted. There's no natural law that deigns that this will always be the way it was. So whereas I get asked this question all the time, my answer is, if we want this, we better roll up our sleeves and fight like hell to keep it. That's why I do this work every day at ADL. Because I want, I'm the grandson of a Holocaust survivor, as I think you know, who thought Germany was the greatest country in the world until his family was incinerated in the ovens. And then he came here and made his life work in America. And I'm the husband of a political refugee from Iran. Their family thought Iran was the greatest country in the world until the Islamic Revolution forced them to flee with the shirts on their back. So when I think about my grandparents' experience, my in-laws and my wife's experience, I look at my own kids and say, I want them to have their families here in this country, if that's what they choose, to be as Jewish as they want to be. But we can't make the same mistake that our German and Iranian ancestors did. We're going to have to fight like hell to make sure this remains the greatest country in the world outside of Israel for the Jewish people And that's what we're intent on doing here every single day. So the long answer to a short question, if you are worried, roll up your sleeves and fight. Don't lean back, lean in. You got to speak out. You got to stand strong. That's the only way we get through this.
Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your time, and keep on keeping on.
Well, I appreciate that. And I will just say, if you will, the one thing that gives me hope is that there was a time when ADL and a few other groups were kind of like really leading this fight. We're still leading the fight, I'd like to think, but we're not alone. Like, you have a superpower, Hen. Like, you have a platform that reaches millions of people, a message that reverberates and can kind of extend way beyond what used to be the case. So why I feel hopeful is because of people like you who've chosen to get in this game. You make the decision every day to be in this fight, and like that gives us strength, and together, that's how we win.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thank you. I'm Israel Chai.